G'day, I'm Rob.
And I'm Dave.
And you're listening to a Doctor Who show hot take, where tonight, Dave, we're going to be talking about Joy to the World, an episode we've both just watched in the last, 10 minutes for you, hour for me.
Hang on, you've watched Joy to the World?
Yes.
I watched Doctor Who Special 5.
You threw me there for a minute. I thought, oh my God, was there something else I should have watched? You're talking about how Disney promotes it, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very exciting when I turned on the Disney app this morning on my TV to tell me there's a new episode, Doctor Who Special 5.
It's very weird, isn't it? The way they promote this show.
It is a bit, yes.
So if you're unfamiliar with our hot takes, we just go all over the place. We chat about the episode. We'll get to the sports desk later, where we'll talk about our MVP of the week, our player of the week, foul of the week, all that good stuff. But always at the top of these episodes, Dave, we do our word of the week. What is your word of the week for Joy to the World?
My word of the week for Joy to the World, or Special 5,
yes,
is Pavlova.
Pavlova. Okay. Oh, that could go in so many directions, because we even have a New Zealand character. Oh, I'll stop talking. My word of the week, Dave, is wish fulfillment, which I've hyphenated, Dave, so it's one word to me. Wish
fulfillment. Good. There's no G in wish fulfillment. Why not put a G in there?
I don't know.
How strange.
Dave, I'll kick off by saying this was Moffat being Moffat, wasn't it? We have this big timey-wimey concept, which I thought was really strong and interesting. We retrod a lot of his old ideas, and I'm sure we'll get to those as we chat about it all. And all told, I thought it was a good Christmas episode.
Yeah, we will definitely be talking about Moffat and the Well. There's definitely a lot to discuss there. This was an absolutely Moffat episode. If you just got me to watch this blind without telling me who the writer was, I would have absolutely said, oh, this is a Stephen Moffat episode. So very, very much the case. This is going to be one of those hot takes, Rob, where I need to invoke hot take rule number 2.
Oh, gosh.
Which is a reminder to myself that the purpose of these is not so much to tell people whether we liked it, but to let the audience know whether we think they would like it, and in particular what sort of an audience would like it. I certainly didn't think this was a bad episode. Did I think this was a good episode? I'm still not sure, and I think it does depend. I think that Moffat does a lot of different sorts of things in his writing for Doctor Who, and indeed his writing more generally. And in the first 10 to 15 minutes, I was thinking, this is Moffat doing timey-wimey space adventure, and that's very cool. I'm excited for that. As it went on, though, I realised this is a lot more about Moffat doing his sort of slightly overwrought, slightly twee sort of Moffat. And I think that your enjoyment of this episode will come down to whether when you spend 10 minutes with the Doctor in a room with a hotel worker just getting to be friends with her, if you think that's really lovely and warm and tugs at the heartstrings and hits you in the feels, I think you will get a lot out of this episode, and I suspect there'll be a lot of people who did. If, like me, you get a few minutes into that sequence and go, yeah, okay, this is a good chance to go make some toast.
Wow.
Then you're probably going to get less out of it. That doesn't make it good or bad, but I think it's a very particular vibe of episode that will hit some people really well and hit others less well, but there is more below the surface than that. That is not a all-encompassing get-out-of-jail card.
I think it depends also on how much you can compartmentalise stuff. And this thought has only just come to me. It's not in my notes. It's just come to me as you've been talking. And that's when certain things happen in certain Doctor Who stories, and it's maybe not for you, or maybe it's something that, how can I put this, maybe pushes a certain nerve a bit too much. You can just sort of shut off from it. You can compartmentalise and think it's happening over there, but I'm not engaging with it. And then as the story comes back to something you are engaging with, you get back into the story. Because I'm that kind of watcher. And that even happened to me in this episode, which I probably won't go into too deeply. But when certain things happen, I can sort of go, okay, it's happening, and now it's not happening. Now I'm back in the story.
Yeah, that's a really good comment. And I think that I'm not that kind of watcher. And okay. I find that my views on episodes and on television and on movies are very, very much cumulative. You know, it's like eating mercury in fish.
Right.
If there's a few bad things in the episode, at some point they reach critical mass, and I sort of go, nah, too much.
Right.
And I think I kind of had that vibe with this. There were a lot of really good things in here. The premise was fantastic. The opening's fantastic. We'll get into all of this in a moment, I'm sure. Why I'm struggling to really say what I thought of this episode is because intermixed with all the good, there was quite a little bit of stuff that wasn't for me, and the accumulation of that didn't help.
Interesting. Despite what I just kicked off with, I'm going to say it did start a bit slow for me. And unlike other Moffat stories, it didn't feel Moffat to me instantly. But then a few minutes in, it sort of clicked into place, like he remembered, oh, I'm Stephen Moffat. And he started to write like himself, and the big concept kicked in, and I thought, oh yeah, Moffat's in the house now. But initially, it felt a bit generic to me.
Did you think so? Because I thought all the jumping between time zones with the Doctor trying to give different people a toast in some pumpkin milk was just very Moffat-y. I thought, okay. We're doing multiple time zones, and the Doctor's doing something weird and wacky that's no doubt going to be explained backwards, and it was. I thought, no, this is Moffat just stamping his big Moffat face on the front of the episode and going, hey kids, Stephen Moffat's here. Look at this, lots of time zones and a weird and wacky thing with pumpkin milk, because that's weird and wacky too. Like, I just thought this is very Moffat-y. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I look, I'll go with weird and wacky, but I think weird and wacky has become so much a part of Doctor Who that any writer could be doing it. I know the time stuff is very Moffat-y, but weird and wacky, it's kind of generic Doctor Who almost these days, to my mind.
Yeah, okay. Look, I'll go with that. Sure.
Random comment, just because it's here in my notes, and my notes are very out of order, Dave. You know, it bothered me for the whole show that I couldn't place Trev's actor. And then I looked it up when I got offline, and I realised he was Stylax in Plebs, which is a very underrated show. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a comedy about living in ancient Rome, comedy series.
I also am sure I've seen that actor somewhere. My main takeaway with Trev was that I was very relieved when he died, because I thought he was a terrible actor. There was lots of, oh, I better act now. The Doctor said something wacky. I better give the Doctor said something wacky acting reaction to that. And, oh, now I need to do something a little bit subtle. Here's my very over-the-top subtle acting. And when he died, I was just, oh, thank goodness, because he didn't need any more lines.
Well, you know what? It's almost like he was being written like the character of Trev should have been played by Richard Ayoade. It felt very Richard Ayoade to me, and it felt like this guy was trying to sort of do Richard Ayoade, to my mind.
It reminded me of that Douglas Adams line about when you write funny dialogue, some actors think you have to give a funny performance. And I really did feel that the actor who played Trev was looking at each of his lines and going, oh, how do I heighten the joke here? Oh, the joke is that this guy said something more subtle than it needed to be. Watch me land this very subtle piece of acting. Or, oh, at this point, the Doctor said something completely wacky and bemusing. I better make sure the audience knows I found that wacky and bemusing as well, rather than just letting the lines carry it. I thought it was a really heightened performance that maybe is a little bit modern-y Doctor Who-y as well. But I did think that it wasn't a good performance, and I was quite pleased when he died. Although, can we follow that Trev thought to the Moffat-y thought, and maybe in a Moffat-y way work backwards? Because you said, Rob, there are a lot of Moffat things in here. The one where I thought, no, Moffat, this is too many of your tropes. Go away from your Moffat well and do something else, was when Trev came back and did the whole, I'm dead now, but you can still communicate with me. I thought, no, Stephen, that's too many tropes.
Yeah.
I've gone with you so far. Yes, it's all nice and Moffat, but oh no, now you're doing the dead person can talk again. No, Stephen, try harder.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a note here that, you know, now that we've pulled the Band-Aid off and we're not doing spoilers, you know, people are dying. I was surprised but delighted we had a threat that was killing people. You know, after they gave up the briefcase, they were dissolving. Wow, this is great.
Yep.
But then, yes, in true Moffat style, they're alive in a database, you know, and it's shades of Silence in the Library all over again.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. We started with a Moffat trope that goes all the way back to Press Gang.
Oh, yes.
with somebody walking around handcuffed to a briefcase. And for a moment there I thought, oh wow, the trigger word's going to be love and war. So, he definitely was going right back. We had different time zones, lesbian lovers. We had a bootstrap paradox. We had the Doctor coming back to fix something in the past.
Yeah, and I think the bootstrap paradox might even be Moffat maybe being a bit meta and commenting on his own work, perhaps, in the past.
Yeah, almost too meta, you might say.
Yeah, and look, aside from retreading his own old work, I think he retrod some of RTD's old work in the opening of that shrine. In Bad Wolf, we had Rose using the truck to open the TARDIS console, and I think Moffat's said, Russell, hold my beer, and across time, he has these... he has the Orange Express back in the 1960s opening the shrine.
Yeah, was that a homage or going back to the well, or has Doctor Who just been around so long, even in its new form, that at some point you inevitably just end up copying or doing the same thing again?
I was wondering how the time portal to Mount Everest would work, because while the other portals seem to go to rooms located in a certain time or near a certain event, that particular room, if we can use room in quotation marks, had you pop up in Edmund Hillary's tent, and Edmund Hillary is there. And I know it helps the plot along in obvious ways, like with the rope and all of that, but how does that work in practice, Dave? You pop up, and Ed Hillary would say, who the bloody hell are you? How do you explain that? How do you stay there for a holiday? It would seem a very short experience versus having your own room in other times and places and being able to, go out and explore and see these historical events like the assassination of Caesar or whatever, and then come back to your own private space. I was really thinking about this concept a lot, Dave.
Yeah, it's one of those ideas that is fun, and I think you just have to go with it. You're right, it did sort of need almost a sort of a Hitchhiker's Restaurant at the End of the Universe sort of explanation about why this is all impossible, but it works anyway. Sort of thing where, on returning to your own time zone, the timelines realign and the next person can go and Hillary forgets or whatever. I don't know. Yes, because, at some point, how many people are actually in Ford's Theatre watching Lincoln's assassination?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so you just sort of have to go, well, obviously there's an impossible explanation, and that's what it is. Speaking of Hillary, I'm not sure whether his accent was British or Australian, but I didn't think it was New Zealand.
No, it was more Australian, I'll say that much. I think he was trying for a Kiwi accent, though.
Yeah, I didn't know whether he was trying. I mean, this is probably one of those ones where it turns out the actor is actually a New Zealander and we're very embarrassed. But
that's the nature of hot takes.
It did sort of sound to me like they've gone, can you do a Kiwi accent? Oh, what's that sound like? I don't know. Then you're Australian. Do that, but not.
Yeah.
But he only had 2 lines, so maybe, we couldn't really judge.
You raised this a moment ago in terms of people might like a certain part of the story, and I'm going to say I liked the Anita section of the story.
Great.
At first I was thinking a bit broader. Why would the Doctor need a job to make money? He's got the sonic screwdriver. We've seen Tennant rip off cash machines with it in the past. He can get money. He doesn't need a job. And then I realised, and here we are back, Moffat doing the Moffat thing, retreading past work, stuff from his era. He'd have Matt Smith doing mundane jobs for a laugh. I don't think they were necessarily in stories he wrote, like I'm thinking of The Lodger. But I'm sure it happened in other places too, that Matt Smith would be doing mundane stuff. And isn't it funny to see the Doctor doing mundane stuff? And, so here, wasn't it funny to see Ncuti Gatwa in his polo shirt doing maintenance in a hotel? So I can see why he went there. And of course it gave us that platonic relationship with Anita, which I enjoyed. Again, I'll say that.
Yeah.
It gives Ncuti a new companion in some ways to put on his list. Because if Joy is going to be a companion, I think Anita is a companion.
Well, she spent a year of her life with him.
Precisely.
She didn't travel in the TARDIS, though.
Yeah, think of Dr. Liz Shaw, Dave.
We could go down the whole rabbit hole of what counts as a companion.
Yeah, look, if Liz Shaw is a companion, then she's a companion.
Okay, no worries.
I like the way he collected the police boxes, although it was a bit on the nose. Oh, there are loads of these online and I don't know why, but I went with that because it is actually possible, Dave, to buy police boxes that have nothing to do with Doctor Who. I'm thinking specifically of train set accessories, for example, because I've done that myself in the past.
Well, indeed, wasn't there a whole thing back in the day that the only reason a company was able to sell TARDISes was because they were police box models, not TARDISes per se.
Yes.
Because they didn't have the license to the TARDIS or something.
Yes.
And now I think the BBC does own it. Yeah, there's a whole thing there. Look, I'm really glad you enjoyed the Anita stuff. I was watching it totally thinking this will work for a lot of people. It wasn't working for me. I was just sort of thinking, well, okay, so just stopping the plot so the Doctor can be twee for 10 minutes. As I said, I went and made some toast. And
Right.
with Vegemite. And
Nice.
I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was badly played. It was all very nicely done. I just don't care that the Doctor's lonely. I don't care that the Doctor needs to make a friend. I just don't see the Doctor in that human, anthropomorphic sort of way. And so the Doctor spending a year playing board games to me is just dull. Not bad, but dull. But again, there will, I think, will be a lot of the audience that this will resonate for, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and look, for me, and this won't be the same for everyone because not everyone has read the EDAs. In fact, a lot of modern Doctor Who fans would never have picked up an EDA. But part of the EDAs is the TARDIS needing to regrow and the Doctor can't use it, and he's stuck in the 20th century for most of the 20th century, the Eighth Doctor. And he has to have jobs and do things, and he lives through decade after decade. This to me is almost that, but compressed into a year. You know, what's he going to do? Oh, he's playing board games, he's collecting TARDIS models, he's doing that. So I kind of liked this sort of compressed time, what does the Doctor do when he's stuck on Earth vibe. You know, I know some people will see this as almost a rom-com sort of thing, even though it's obviously extremely platonic. They'll see it in a rom-com sort of light and they'll really enjoy that aspect. That's not how I see it at all. I sort of saw it in just this more, I'm enjoying what the Doctor would do if he was stuck for a year.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I get what it was trying to do. I get why it would have worked. Didn't work for me. That's fine. To go back to the police box thing, yes, that line about, there's lots of them out there online. I did sort of, give Moffat a yellow card at that point. It was like, come on, Stephen. You can be a little bit too clever sometimes, and too much of this is a bit too much. So just be careful,
I've hit another Moffat retread in my notes, Dave, and it's Villain Guard. Villain Guard has featured before, back in The Empty Child Doctor Dances, and in his most recent 3 stories, it was in Twice Upon a Time, it was in Boom, and now in this Christmas special. So this, quotation marks, evil arms company.
Yes, that was again a Moffat thing that there's an evil arms company, or that particular evil arms company. Yes, no, that's very true.
Yeah. A note here, Doctor Who doesn't really do religion, but here we get an evening star above Bethlehem at a certain point in history that can only mean one thing. Were you surprised Doctor Who went there, in quotation marks, to not only give a Doctor Who background as to what the Star of Bethlehem was, but to even give tacit acknowledgement that the Bible story was real?
No, I'm not surprised. I think that there's a reasonable amount of evidence that a number of events around the biblical times in Judea occurred. Now, whether you believe that the child who was born was the Son of God, or whether you believe that he was a political agitator or a Judean rebel against imperial Rome or whatever, whether you believe that Jesus is Christ our Lord or just some guy,
Yeah.
That I don't think the show was going there. I don't think the show would ever go there. But whether you believe, one version or the other, we know that there almost certainly was a person that we know as Jesus Christ. We know certain events that happened. We know that he probably was crucified and where that happened. There is a lot of research there. May well have been a supernova or a comet or something that could be the star. So I think that Doctor Who can invoke those events, particularly in a Christmas special, without actually saying whether or not the show supports that Jesus was the Son of God or not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I'll jump in just so I don't seem like a complete dullard. There are certainly stories in the Bible that are based on historical events. definitely, just
Yeah.
not all of them. Yes.
Yes, that's absolutely right. You know, there almost certainly was a flood. Did it destroy the entire world at the behest of God? Well, let's not debate that. But, Rob, dinosaur?
Loved it.
Yep.
Loved it. Yeah. I mean, we'd seen that back when we'd met in Sydney a couple of months ago. We'd seen that,
Yes.
that day. So, yes, we'd seen it. We love it. Yes.
Yes, no, very, very cool. Added something extra to the story. Added a little bit of action and vibe when it was needed. I thought that was a very cool moment.
Me too.
Another cool moment was the Doctor reprimanding himself and getting stuck into himself. I thought that
Yes.
of all the Moffat meta moments, that was my favourite, and in fact it was probably the only one I really, really liked. I thought that was very, very cleverly done, and this is why nobody likes you. Just you have to be mysterious. I thought it was very, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed that too.
Yeah, not sure how I land on the bootstrap thing. The really sort of anal retentive part of me wants an explanation, but the part of me watching the episode does acknowledge that, you know, having a side track so the Doctor can calculate the code would probably have bogged down the story. And had they done that, I probably would be saying, well, I had to take 5 minutes to go and work out a code. That didn't really, you know, and so I probably would have been harsh either way. And at least the bootstrap was like clever and kind of funny.
Yeah, and again, I think he was being a bit meta about his past work and commenting on that tongue-in-cheek.
Yes. For the first third, I thought the sound was a bit off. And once again, I had a bit of a problem hearing some of Ncuti Gatwa's dialogue. Now, I don't know if this is something that others are hearing or whether I've just, because everybody's ears, you know, age and get damaged in a different way, and my ears have just sort of lost the part of the spectrum that can hear Ncuti Gatwa's voice. I don't know. But it has been a recurring thing now that particularly over the music, I struggle to hear Ncuti when he's doing his very low, I'm saying something profound voice. I actually struggle to hear that. That register doesn't work for me. Could be me, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the sound mix isn't great. I've actually had my ears professionally tested in the past year, and I had the ears of a much younger man, Dave.
Oh, congratulations.
I could hear things that were actually in age brackets below mine, so that was quite good. So I know I have good hearing, but yeah, it was kind of muffled and kind of not quite right in places. I agree.
Fair enough. Now, Rob, the centrepiece of this episode was the character of Joy.
Yes.
The episode, at least in the UK, was named after her. It's the last time I'll do that joke, I promise.
Okay.
What did you make of her? We haven't really talked about her yet. We've circled around her.
Yeah, look, there are two answers to this. One is to do with the actress in question, Nicola Coughlan, who I believe is in Bridgerton, which I've never watched, and I believe she's in Derry Girls, which I've seen maybe a minute or two of here and there, and thought, oh, that looks kind of interesting, but probably not for me, and I've never really watched it. So I don't know the actress at all. But as a character, it's interesting. I think she was competent. I think she did the job. I'm just thinking she seemed to take everything very well, particularly going to a time-travelling hotel and all of that. There was no sort of real surprise or anything going on. I guess in some ways she was possessed. I'm just spitballing here, Dave. She didn't stand out to me as like, oh, I'd love her to be the next companion, or oh, I love that performance. She was just sort of there and did the job.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my mind of the Red Letter Media character test that they ran over original Star Wars versus prequel Star Wars characters, which is, can you explain their character or personality without a reference to a plot point?
Interesting.
And I don't think I particularly can. Was she brave at the end? Yes. Was she sad her mum died? Yes. But those are all plot things points she had to do because the plot required her to do it. Given that she was not in the middle third of this story, given that the first third of this story, for the most part, she was possessed by a briefcase.
Yes.
And for the last quarter of the story, she was now part of a Moffat-esque dead but not dead inside the computer gestalt thing. Yeah. Maybe we didn't really see any of the real Joy. Maybe she just wasn't there, and maybe that's the point. Maybe the real Joy was the journey. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't have much more to say because there wasn't much to sort of hang the character on. You're right, outside of the plot points. A big one being the death of her mother and her being sad at Christmas time and wanting to be alone and all of that.
Yeah, so she was now in the Star, and she was able to kill her mum so her mum could join her in the Star. Was that what I was meant to take away from that?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess in the original timeline, her mum simply died of what we don't know, but she couldn't be there because of COVID. But then in the new timeline, I guess she zaps her and her mum joins her, and it made me think, how is the hospital going to explain the lack of body? Because she dissolved, Dave, flew off to the Star. There'll be no one in the bed. I'm sure the hospital will have an inquiry. But just one of those things we gloss over, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I again thought that's one of those moments that some people are going to get a real lump in their throat, and it's going to resonate, and they're going to go, isn't that a lovely moment? I was just sort of going, so she's killing her mum now? And her mum's, she's got that power?
Well, I guess it was the point of her mum's death already, so it's not
I'm not saying she killed her mum earlier or anything, but I don't know. It was a moment of just, so what's going, okay, I think it's this, okay, I'll go with it, that's fine.
Yeah, whereas again for me, I was thinking, if I was the hospital administrator, how would I explain this?
Yeah, and again, I suspect that there will be people who will say, that absolutely landed for them. It was the hit in the feels, emotional resolution of the story, and maybe they're better people than us. I'm not going to discount that as a possibility.
Yeah, it didn't get me. No.
Yeah, okay.
Dave, shall we go to the sports desk?
Yes, because I want to do that and then the cricket.
Okay. And here we are at the sports desk. If you've never heard this before, we do our play of the week, foul of the week, MVP of the week. Dave, your play of the week.
My play of the week is exactly what I suspect you would expect it to be, Rob, and that is there was a very cool dinosaur that did very cool things, and I love dinosaurs, so dinosaur.
Mine was the ambition of the Time Hotel. Conceptually, I thought, yep, Moffat, you've done it again. You've come up with this big idea involving time, and in some ways it's a shame we didn't do more there. I mean, could you imagine, Dave, a murder mystery set there? So we get to know the guests and we're running around after them through time, chasing suspects or something. There's a bigger story to tell there, but we probably never will.
Look, I totally agree. I thought the Time Hotel was a really cool concept. I really enjoyed that first 10 minutes or so that was all about the Time Hotel and the possibilities. I was actually pausing now and then to try and get some of the references. I did sort of sit there and go, which presidential assassinations are they going back to? And there was a part of my mind that thought, oh no, he's not going to put Trump down. He's not going to say Trump got assassinated. Thank goodness we do not. Thank goodness, because that would have just been a thing everybody talked about. It would have been horrible. So
yeah,
no, he went for the two really easy ones. No McKinley. Oh well.
Yeah.
I've been to where McKinley died.
Have you really?
I have.
Interesting. Foul of the week. I'll go first here, Dave. A quirky foul from me, and it relates to what we were just talking about, because this episode isn't something I saw and really thought, oh my God, that's so bloody terrible when it came to any one thing. So I'm going with the idea of the Time Hotel being such a good one and yet being used as window dressing for a Christmas story. I think there was a bigger story to mine from it.
Yeah, so my foul I'm giving to the moment when I thought it all got a little bit too smug and a little bit too clever for its own good. And that is the moment when they pulled the Bethlehem card title up, as Murray Gold did some very satisfied music, because I very quickly worked out when I saw the setting of the sort of the environment in which the briefcase had found itself. I thought, okay, we're doing sort of a biblical times thing. Oh, it's Christmas. Of course we're doing a biblical times thing. I drew those dots very quickly.
Yeah.
As soon as I realised it was going to be a star, I was like, of course, they're doing the Christmas star because it's a Christmas episode, right? I get that. Well done. And then they did the big pull out and, hey guys, guess what we're doing? Guess what we're doing? Yeah, that's right. It's Bethlehem. Yeah. And the music was like, hey guys, aren't we clever? You didn't see this coming, did you? It's Bethlehem. That's the Christmas star. Get it? And I thought, no, yes, I got it 5 minutes ago. It was very obvious. It wasn't that clever. And I don't mind you being a little bit clever now and then, Stephen Moffat, but when you're smug about it, I think that's when it falls down. There were some references in this that worked for me. There were some little bits of meta Moffat-esseness that I thought were a bit too much, but this was just a accumulation of it all that left me going, no, that's too smug. And that was a shame, because it was a very negative little sort of moment at the end of the episode.
Oh, I'm just surprised, Dave, that three wise men didn't walk into shot and sort of point up at the star just to finish the scene.
Yeah, look, they probably could have had like very bad Hartnell, Trout, and Pertwee impersonators being the three wise men or something. If they'd really thought about it, let's not go there.
Yes. Okay. Finally, MVP. Who's your MVP this week, Dave?
This was tough for me, Rob, not because I hated most of the performances, apart from Trev, but I was struggling to go with a standout. There was a moment when I thought I could be funny and say it was the dinosaur, but I've already done that for my play of the week. There was a moment when I thought I could say the budget, because although this didn't sort of have lots of, oh my God, look at the money spent on that scene moment, I was very aware going through that there were just so many sets and settings and actors and actresses who are only there for 2 minutes of screen time, but they made an Orient Express, they made a 1940s hotel room, they made the side of every, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, although the money wasn't sort of splashed in an oh my God scene, it really was splashed around. That was very impressive. Look, in the end, I've gone with the Ncuti Gatwa, not because I thought it was an outstanding performance, but I thought it was a solid one that held the episode together. And in an episode of just decent performances, I thought his was very decent.
Yeah, I'm going with Ncuti Gatwa too. He's obviously on screen most of the time, so sort of gets there by default in some ways, because the companion role was quite unexpectedly, I think, split between Anita and Joy. And then the rest of the cast are very much bit part sort of pieces. But I do think in his own right, he felt very settled in the role, and he inhabited being the Doctor like he'd done it a long time. At no point did I think, oh, that's off or not quite right, or oh, he could be doing that better. Even his emotional moment, I think, was done well. And I really liked, this is only a small thing, Dave, but I really liked when he's talking to the Silurian. He's like, oh, you're a Silurian. And the admiration and the way he's talking to the Silurian, you can think, yes, that's a through line from Pertwee. That's the Pertwee Doctor talking there. It's talking as Ncuti Gatwa in a Ncuti Gatwa way, but that vibe and admiration for the Silurians is a through line, and I liked that.
Yeah, I thought Ncuti did what he was required to do very, very well. Unfortunately, he was required to cry twice and shed tears twice, which is not his fault. I don't like it. Unfortunately, he had to give some very overwrought Moffat-y / RTD pieces of dialogue, which again, I'm not a big fan of this sort of RTD Moffat give the Doctor long overwrought speeches, but having been given them, he delivered them very, very well. So I am giving Ncuti Gatwa specifically my play of the week, not the Doctor.
Yeah, very good. And I'll just say on that, I mean, RTD's out there saying on the crying thing, like, yeah, this is an emotional Doctor. He cries. Get over it, go touch grass, whatever. But I think the more he does it, the less heft it has. Like, if the Doctor never cried and then in an episode he cried, you would think, oh, that's a really hard-hitting thing. The Doctor is crying. My God. But when he does it every episode, it just has no meaning. I don't know how Russell can't see that.
Yeah, at some point it feels like a box tick.
Yeah,
every episode the Doctor has to cry. Oh, he's crying at this one. Tick. And yes, I did have the two moments when maybe a different type of performance would have carried more heft, but because it was, Ncuti Gatwa's got a tear again. Of course he has. That's that box tick to move on. Yeah. I was a lot more cynical. But again, general audience watching at Christmas time, maybe that would be a big deal. And again, Rob, I haven't had my Antipodean Christmas special rant yet this episode, so I'll get it here in the end. Okay. And just remind the audience that this episode was intended for a bunch of casual viewers on Christmas in the UK, dark, cold. I believe it was snowing in parts of the country, certainly on Christmas Eve. You've had a few drinks over lunch, you've had a big Christmas lunch, and now you're all gathered in the cold on the couch and watching Doctor Who. And that is a fundamentally different experience to us in Australia, waking up on Boxing Day, where by 9 o'clock it was already 30-something degrees, heading towards 40. Yep. And it's just not the same warm and fuzzy Christmas experience for us than it was for them. And maybe some of those moments that we, particularly myself, have called out as being just a bit too overwrought, a bit too emotional, a bit too saccharine, would land a lot better if we were watching this at 5, 6 o'clock, whatever it was, on Christmas Day in winter.
Yeah, dark outside. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. As opposed to Australia, where if you turn the TV on at 5 o'clock, you would have been told to go outside and do something because you just don't watch TV on Christmas in Australia. Like,
No.
It's when they show the royal variety performance because they know no one's watching TV.
Yes, I must admit, I saw a bit of that last night on TV and I thought, oh my God, Marty Pellow can't sing anymore. But anyway, let's not go there. Dave, words of the week. Yours was Pavlova.
Mine was Pavlova because this was very sweet, it was very nice, it was very saccharine. Was there any substance afterwards? Did I feel full and fulfilled at the end? No, I didn't. This was just a very light, sugary piece of television.
And here I was thinking it was going to be a clever New Zealand reference to Edmund Hillary. What a fool I am, Dave.
Look, I could pretend it was, obviously it's a Christmassy food. I was originally going with fairy floss, but I thought, no, Pavlova's even better because it's Christmassy. But it was that sense of just watching this going, look, there's some nice stuff in here, but it's very sugary. It's the full Moffat saccharin. Is there any substance here? No. Am I going to sort of feel changed after watching it? Definitely not. That's fine. Some people will watch this and love it. I'm basically indifferent to it.
Okay. My word of the week was wish fulfillment with a hyphen. Because we had an episode recently, Dave, which was our Ask Us Anything episode, recorded when you and I were in Sydney together.
Yes.
And there was a question from listener Christopher Bryant. I had to go back and check on this, and it was Christopher Bryant. And he said, what would give you joy to the world in this year's Christmas special? And my answer was that I wanted something dark and horrible to happen. And maybe Moffat would bump off the companion. And essentially, that's what happened. I mean,
yes.
While it was still a Christmas episode with all the trimmings, no pun intended, and joy is bumped off, albeit in a happy way, if I can put it like that, It still basically fulfilled my desire for the story to have some heft, something to it, which anchors the more light-hearted stuff. Could it have gone darker for my taste? Yeah, of course it could have. But there was still some wish fulfillment there. He bumped the companion off, and that's what I was thinking back, 2 months ago?
No, that's very true. That's very true. I get it. Okay, yeah. I get it.
To conclude, I said at the start, this was a good Christmas episode, and I mean it, and I'm throwing an 8 out of 10 at this, Dave. I was entertained by this. It wasn't overtly Christmassy. It wasn't overtly twee. There were some twee moments, though, I agree. It had the sadness to it that I just mentioned. It had the big idea of the time hotel. It had a lot to like. But I was thinking towards the end, is this disposable? I was wondering if my word of the week could actually be disposable, because I thought this isn't something you'd rewatch a lot. It isn't something you're reaching for on a wet afternoon next August, is it?
No.
Why would you be doing that? It's just not that sort of story. So it can't be a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It just can't. It's not that top tier. Oh my God, I must see this again, Doctor Who. But it was a story that in the moment entertained me. It didn't poop the bed. And I think it was perfectly fine. And although it seems a little high, I'm sticking with 8.
Yeah, that's fine. Look, I'll go B minus, B plus. Mm-hmm. Probably depends on which moment I'm watching, so I'll just say a B. It was fine. Yeah.
Alrighty. Before we go, have you seen the Season 2 trailer?
No, I was going to mention right at the end. Was there a Season 2 trailer in the UK?
There probably was, because there's one online through the BBC channels.
Yeah, right. No, there obviously wasn't on Disney Plus, and so I haven't seen it because I had to finish my notes and turn my computer on to talk to you, Rob. So didn't even have time to go and seek out a trailer.
Well, all I'll say on that is there were some good-looking effects, there were some tense moments, but as we all know, trailers, that's they can make even a dog with fleas look good, Dave. So, I'll say there's potential, but what will actually be, we'll have to wait and see, I think.
Ask me again when we record our monthly episode in a couple of days' time.
Yes. And on that note, we will talk to you on December 29th with our monthly episode looking at an adventure in space and time. But until then, I've been Rob.
And I've been Dave.
And we'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Show. Goodbye.
Goodbye.